I had been a credentialed minister for about 15 years prior to a time when I had an unsettling experience that left me feeling that I had done harm to another person. It was unintentional, but just the same, it was harm. It was at a women's retreat in late August at a church camp in central Pennsylvania. 8 or 10 of us shared a cabin, and on one occasion I found myself alone with one of the other women, someone a bit older than myself. We were changing clothes, probably after swimming, and suddenly I realized that the other woman was showing me deliberately and intentionally her scars from a double mastectomy following breast cancer. It was obvious that she wanted that trauma and heartache to be acknowledged by me. It was an intimate and vulnerable invitation on her part that clearly said, please see me, acknowledge me, care for me. I'm ashamed to say that I looked away, uncomfortable and ill at ease. I knew the right response, but I failed to meet her need to be seen and heard and cared for. That memory brings me great pain, even after all these years, and I have rehearsed in my mind more than once what I wish I had said and done. You know what that's like. Over and over again, you think of what you desperately wish you had said or wish you had done, if only. Why didn't I say or do the right and appropriate thing? But in the end, you can't change the past. All that's left to do is to trust that God's redeeming love can make something out of your failure to speak and act in the way that you wish you had. I think of this incident now and then as I find myself these days identifying with that woman's need to be seen and heard in the places that most bring pain and grief in my life. Because of a significant loss and change in my life in the last few years, I too feel within myself that desire to be seen and heard in the midst of my struggles in life. A relationship that I have held dear for decades has been changed forever. It feels some days like carrying around an open, bleeding wound that, while not visible to others, brings me great grief and pain. Like that woman, I long for others to know and understand the depth of suffering that I carry, and yet I wonder if, when I share, they will look away as well. It seems to me that within us creaturely humans, there is a universal longing and yearning to have someone listen, truly to understand the deep pain and struggle that we are going through. And of those who do know our struggles, we long to have them just ask now and then, how are you coping? It's a rare and precious gift to be seen and heard in the reality of our complex, jumbled, chaotic, messy existence by another human being who cares. To be surrounded by persons who, with genuine compassion, say, I see you, I hear you, you matter to me. Now that is quite a treasure. Almost, you might say, like a pearl of great price that we'd have anything to have, give anything to have. I think that of all the stories of Jesus' ministry that I love most, it's those moments where he does just that captivate me. It's often in the midst of tense scenes where the religious leaders are trying to trap him and nail him as a Sabbath violator that he defiantly chooses to see and hear the most vulnerable person in the room. He does not look away in uncomfortable moments. Jesus sees the vulnerable, marginalized people around him, and they matter enormously to him. He brings them right back in the center of their communities and restores them there and regards them as beloved in his sight. It's my hope and prayer that I will find ways to do better toward others than the woman that I encountered so long ago. I wonder if I can honor her need and longing by noticing those on the edges around me. You'd think that I could, given that I spent years living as a foreigner in the Dominican Republic. While not exactly a person of little power, I was part of a minority of white foreigners there, working as mission staff for my denomination in the country for almost 8 years. Even though as an American expatriate I went with significant personal privilege, relatively speaking, I experienced what it is like to feel vulnerable and to feel on the outside, not initially being able to speak the language comfortably for a while, dependent on others to find my way around. I was inspired by the gracious, kind, patient Dominicans who cared for me as a newcomer. They modeled what it is to not look away, but instead to notice the needs of a stranger. So when I see someone on the edges, I hope I will always try to remember and reach out. I hope I will be able to do good and not cause harm. A contemporary Jewish rabbi, Danya Ruttenberg, has defined perfect repentance as that moment when a person has the opportunity to commit the same harm that they had previously committed, but they make a different choice instead. They make a different choice because they are a different person. One who has done the deep work of understanding their problematic choices and the harm they have caused. They have become someone who cares about not causing harm. It's been about 25 years since the incident I described. In what way can I address the harm done so long after the fact? While I can no longer find the woman I described to address my failure directly, I can keep doing the work of personal transformation towards becoming a person who consistently sees and hears and acknowledges the vulnerable ones in my midst, a person who responds differently when given a choice, a person who allows God's reign to grow and multiply in my life. I am so very grateful that, as we often say in this service, what we have been is past, and what we shall be through Christ still awaits us. May it be so for us by God's grace.